In the Bubble with Andy Slavitt is a podcast from Lemonada Media that operates under the premise that the most comforting thing for all of us is knowing what and what not to worry about. It's been a source of nonpartisan and clear information for millions through the pandemic. Host and former White House senior advisor for COVID response, Andy Slavitt, is here to help you make sense of tough issues, from COVID to the crisis in Ukraine to climate change and beyond. Andy breaks down the most complex news stories of today in a way that is easy to understand and gives you the info you need to keep you and your family safe and informed. Named one of the top podcasts of the year by Vanity Fair and many more. In the Bubble has new episodes out Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Listen to In the Bubble with Andy Slavitt wherever you get your podcasts.
Listen to Will Be Wild early on Amazon Music or early and ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in Apple Podcasts or the Wondery app. It's Christmas Eve 2020 when Jackson Reffitt makes the biggest decision of his life. He's been watching anime in his bedroom, or trying to.
I just hear behind my wall my dad talking about the government and Nancy Pelosi, and it's all mumbled, and I'm just like, God, like, this is just... it's crazy. Like, it's crazy talk.
Jackson's 18 years old, and he's come to the conclusion that his father is a dangerous man, and he needs to do something about it. What did he say that made you think he could be violent?
That he's going to do something big. And I know that's very vague, and that's what I think triggered me to be so worried about it, is how vague it was and how, I guess, active he was. It just got to a point where I was getting so paranoid and anxious and nervous that I almost wanted to take this off my shoulders and give it to someone else.
He Googles, how to tip the FBI. A text box pops up. Jackson looks at the blank space and gives himself a pep talk.
Okay, I'm going to do this right now. I have to do this right now. Get it over with. I'm going to just do it.
He starts to type.
I don't know what my dad's doing. He's a part of a couple organizations, Texas Freedom Force, I believe it's called. He's prominent at Three Percenters. He says he's high up in the organization. He says he's doing something big. I don't know what, but I'm just worried. I don't know where he's going. He might do something soon. I have no idea.
And send. Although they lived under one roof, Jackson Reffitt and his dad were not close. The older Jackson got, the more he came to see his dad as bossy and intolerant. Still, he didn't start to worry about what his dad was capable of until the pandemic hit. That's when his dad joined the militia, the Three Percenters. He started patrolling racial justice rallies as a self-appointed security force protecting private property. He got obsessed with this one Black Lives Matter activist. Jackson found out about it from his mom, who knocked on his door late one night.
She talked about a BLM preacher off Facebook that my dad was keeping an eye on. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, your dad went to Mississippi for this guy. He tried tracking him to find dirt on him. And I was like, what? This is weird.
Jackson's dad has disputed this version of events. He says it's all his son's fantasy, but Jackson sees it as part of a bigger pattern. He says his dad got deep into conspiracy theories, was stockpiling ammo and gasoline, water, and a generator, convinced that electrical power in the U.S. would shut down and the electoral votes would be reset.
He was clearly, I don't want to say unstable. I don't even know a word for it.
Everything about Jackson feels like a direct rebuttal to his dad's brand of masculinity. He wears his long wavy hair pulled back in a pink scrunchie. There's a miniature Winnie the Pooh doll dangling from his cell phone that's a gift from his girlfriend. And where Jackson is soft-spoken, his father can be downright aggressive.
This is a quote he uses a lot in his arguments. He put me in this world, he can take me out. That's a classic for him. He loves that one.
He said that to you?
Oh, all the time. He'll get in my face. He's like, I'll put you in this effing world. I can take you out. It happens a lot. And I don't think it's okay. And my dad has had moments of violence. I mean, have you read the reports of him choking out my mom? It's pretty horrible.
All of this is weighing on Jackson when he hears his dad in late 2020 talking about doing something big.
I was like, I can't call the police. I mean, they're going to come here and do what? They're going to do nothing. So I was just like, the FBI. I mean, you can send in tips to the FBI. I mean, almost everyone knows that.
And after pressing send, he feels some semblance of relief.
Okay, that's off me. It's on their shoulders. Whatever they do, whatever they say, whatever my dad does, it's on them.
From Pineapple Street Studios, Wondery, and Amazon Music, this is Will Be Wild. My name is Ilya Meritz.
And I'm Andrea Bernstein. Chapter 1, Warnings. Not too long after Jackson Reffitt sends in his tip to the FBI, Donnell Harvin, an intelligence official in D.C., is getting off work.
On this particular day, I vividly remember it, I had already left the office. I'm in my car, and I'm at the drive-thru for Panera Bread, ordering dinner.
Who are you ordering dinner for?
Me and my wife. She always gets the Mediterranean bowl with chicken, and I always get the Greek salad with chicken.
Donnell runs a team in the local D.C. government that gathers intelligence on potential threats to the city. As he's placing his dinner order, he gets a call from one of his lead analysts.
You know, these analysts, they're very straight to the point. You know, they're not prone to hyperbole. So it's like, you have a second, I need to share something with you. And it's concerning to me. He's never told me that before. And in fact, I've never had an analyst come to me and said, I have something to share with you that's important.
The analyst is calling to give Donnell an update on a protest planned in D.C. on January 6. Word of the protest had been circulating online, and Donnell had asked him to keep an eye on it. Instead of waiting for the usual morning meeting, though, he thinks Donnell needs to know what he's seeing now.
I get a briefing from him for about 15, 20 minutes, and then immediately I said, well, hold on, I want to get my boss on the line. Because, you know, in intelligence, especially post September 11th, you don't want to be the one caught holding the bag on valuable information.
So right away you escalate?
Immediately.
What do you say?
While I'm still in the car, while I'm still at Panera, I said, guys, hold on. Let me see if I can get my boss on the line.
And what do you say to him?
I said, boss, my analyst, he's got some what we call derogatory information that we've collected online, and I think you need to hear it. The first time I've actually had that conversation with him as well. And he said, okay, let's get on. So I just added my boss and merged the calls. And I told the analyst, tell him exactly what you told me in every single detail you just told me.
Donnell and his boss are quiet while his analyst lays out the intelligence again.
He was seeing through his sources and methods individuals that were extremely violent, had a violent history. Not only were they coming, but they were collaborating online. These threat streams generally don't collide. You know, the militias and the white supremacists and the neo-Nazis, they don't kind of hang out online together.
The threat streams were merging into one giant roaring river.
And it wasn't just the fact that we're hanging out saying, hey, what are you wearing? It was, what are you bringing? How do you bring guns? How do you hide guns? Sharing plans to enter the Capitol. They're talking about entering the Capitol. And so that was what was concerning.
Donnell's boss tells him he'll pass the intel up the chain. And what are you feeling then? Are you feeling like, oh, holy shit, or what are you thinking?
Well, you know, I've been in some really, really tight situations in my career from a physical nature. You know, 9/11, Sandy Hook, Hurricane Sandy. I was a paramedic in Brooklyn in the South Bronx in the 90s. So I've been in some very dangerous physical environments. This was a little bit different. It was more of a tingle. This tingling in the back of my head.
What really gets that tingle vibrating is this. This is bigger than Washington, D.C. The federal government should be taking the lead. But Donnell can't figure out who's in charge.
What I was concerned about was that there was no designated agency, federal agency, that was taking the lead on January 6th. Full stop. We were all meeting as part of the intelligence community around the inauguration, and if it was mentioned during one of these inauguration meetings, January 6th was a footnote. And so since no one was organized, everyone had their eyes on that. I'm like, well, we got to get through this first. So I decided to convene Coalition of the Willing. If you want to show up, we'll have meetings regularly.
This is pretty unusual. Donnell is a local official. He's used to the feds hosting these kinds of meetings.
Understand that it's not the state and local's responsibility to check on the federal government, make sure they got their act together, right? So I feel like the world is kind of spinning out of control. And I'm very anxious, and I have a confidence issue, to be blunt with you. And my entire career, I've been pretty type A confident. Never had any self-doubt. This was unfamiliar for me.
Donnell thinks it's possible he's overreacting. He's been in his post for only a couple of years. Maybe he's the outlier, the one freaking out for no reason. So he reaches out to his mentor in California, who's been doing this a lot longer.
And I said, is it me? I'm hoping it's me. Talk me down. I need some therapy. And he said, no, it's not you. You don't need therapy because we're seeing the same thing on the West Coast.
So together, they decide to convene a call to check in with the network of local intelligence offices across the country. They set it for January 4th. And to their surprise, something like 300 people log on to the call from just about every state and territory. They're seeing the same thing.
So I guess the question that most people would have is, you're the security professionals. You know this. How are you going to stop this thing?
Well, that's a really good question. For me, it's not about stopping what's coming. It's about painting a proper threat environment picture and preparing our jurisdiction for what we thought was to come. Intel and operations are two different things, right? So our job is to just talk. We don't do, if that makes any sense. So, it's kind of like your mom saying, hey, it's cold outside, don't leave without a scarf. That's the intelligence. You're the operation. You make a decision to follow that or not.
If it were up to him, Donnell would be putting up 8-foot non-scalable fences around the Capitol. He'd be putting Capitol Police in riot gear. He'd be making sure they had enough staff and training in case the intelligence became reality. But Donnell, as the leader of an intelligence team, could not do these things. A bit like Jackson Reffitt, he could send the information up the chain, hoping that someone who could do something was listening. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by The Jordan Harbinger Show. Looking for another great podcast to add to your rotation? Check out The Jordan Harbinger Show, a top-shelf podcast named Best of Apple in 2018. This show is packed with amazing stories and actionable content that helps you become a more informed critical thinker. Jordan dives into the minds of fascinating people, from athletes to authors, scientists to mobsters, spies, and even hostage negotiators. His guests share never-before-heard stories and thought-provoking insights. And without fail, he pulls out tactical bits of wisdom in each episode. Recent episodes you might be interested in: an interview with Brian Klaas about the corruptible influence of power, and a two-parter with Matthew Tai about the ins and outs of the Chinese social credit score system. And if you're new to the show, check out jordanharbinger.com/start to find their incredibly helpful starter packs, collections of their most popular episodes grouped by topic. There really is never a dull episode. Search for The Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
On January 5th, 3 former beauty queens, Mrs. Idaho's to be precise, board a plane from Boise to San Francisco. They're just passing through on their way to Washington, D.C. They have matching Trump hats, which they decide not to wear on the plane.
I mean, we're 3 women from Idaho, so we could wear that stuff on the regular and it's not a big deal. But when you go into another city that the people are probably not as like-minded with you, we didn't really know what to expect when we got there.
Natalie Jankula works for a financial advisor, mother of 2, Mrs. Idaho 2015.
So we wanted to kind of fly under the radar, fly incognito, if you will, just to keep any altercations at bay. But when we got to our gate to fly out to DC, we were hit with this big, gigantic red wave of people in MAGA gear and MAGA hats and just gear everywhere. And it's like, I connect with you, like you're one of me.
Natalie's been a Republican all her life, but Trump inspired something deeper in her.
I feel like the last few Republican presidents that we've had just, I don't know, they haven't really spoke to the American people like Trump did.
So as she watched the results of the 2020 election come in, she felt disappointment. But there was something else, confusion. And that confusion turned to doubt. Was the election stolen?
It's almost like these feelings just continue to compound of frustration. Like we have the right to a free and fair election, and it continued to become less free and less fair. Like it got to a place of, you know, what can I do to be a part of a movement to represent how we are feeling?
It's in this headspace that Natalie is scrolling through social media one day in late December when she sees a message from President Trump.
Trump had a tweet that went out that said, calling, you know, all patriots to D.C.
President Trump sent a bunch of tweets urging his followers to go to Washington. In the very first post, he wrote, "Big protest in D.C., January 6th. Be there. Will be wild."
I reached out to my friends and I was like, you guys, I really want to go. And they wanted to go. And we just created a group chat. And they're both other former Mrs. Idahos. And we just felt that it was the right thing to do. And so we bought tickets and we went.
Natalie says there were maybe 4 people on the flight that weren't headed for the rally. At least it felt that way. When they touched down, the passengers broke out into song. They get to D.C., check into their hotel, and then the next morning, Natalie and her 2 friends get up early to get in line for the rally. Really early.
We were in line by like 4 a.m.
What?
Yes.
What?
And it wrapped all the way around the back of the Washington Monument, this line. There were so many people.
The sun comes up. The places around them start to fill in with people. Natalie is like, yeah, this is why I came.
I think with any large event, the energy of coming and being a part of something is just electrifying. But in this case where it felt like something was taken from us and then we were all coming together as one, you're meeting up with people who have the same ideas and views and thoughts that you do.
There's a lot of speakers, but like everyone else, Natalie is there for one in particular.
And many of you have traveled from all across the nation to be here, and I want to thank you for the extraordinary love. That's what it is.
I really do like President Trump. And he's not a great speaker, you know? I mean, you gotta love him, but you kind of hope he sticks to the script sometimes.
It would be really great if we could be covered fairly by the media. The media is the biggest problem we have as far as I'm concerned.
Of course, we always love when he turns around and calls the media out for not reporting certain things. That was kind of a highlight for me.
These people are not going to take it any longer. They're not going to take it any longer.
Did you, at this point, hold out any hope that Donald Trump could remain president one way or another?
Of course. Yeah, of course. Just because I still believe that our election had interference, and that's upsetting to me. So, of course, there's a part of me that just really wished that that would happen that day. And, I always say that if I could do it again, I would have taken my kids. It was that safe. It truly was that safe because it would have just been a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for them to be a part of something that was historic. And I wish I could have shared that with my kids.
Something's really wrong. Can't have happened. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
When the speech ends, Natalie and her crew head back to the hotel to warm up. After a while, they do what Trump told them to do. They walk to the Capitol. She says they stayed outside the building and never joined the fray.
I go through the living room. Everyone's in the living room watching the TV. And I'm just like, what is going on?
Back in Texas, Jackson Reffitt is just noticing what's on the news.
I look at the TV. Obviously, there's huge crowds. There's everyone's freaking out. They're barricading the doors. And my mom looks at me and she's like, your dad is there. And I'm like, what? You're lying. And they're just staring in disbelief at what my dad is a part of.
Patriots! We're taking the Capitol after this shit.
In shaky videos released later, you can see Jackson's dad, Guy Reffitt, make his way through Washington. He's wearing a tactical vest and a helmet with a GoPro-style camera mounted on top. There's a bulge on his right hip. According to prosecutors, it's a .40 caliber pistol.
He's coming out on her fucking ears.
And you can hear him boasting to anyone who will listen that he has big plans.
I didn't come here to play games. I'm taking the Capitol with everybody fucking else. We're all getting dragged in motherfuckers out, kicking and screaming. I don't give a shit. I just want to see Pelosi's head hit every fucking stair on the way out. Fuck yeah, and Mitch McConnell too. Fuck them all.
When he gets to the Capitol, Guy is part of the very first group of rioters that pushes through a police barricade. They get to a stone staircase. At the top, a group of officers is protecting the doors that lead to the United States Senate.
We have it under control. Breaching the west stairs. Breaching the west stairs. Up the stairs. We need backup.
Guy, alone, climbs the stairs. The officers tell him to stop. He keeps going. First, police hit him with pepper balls. He's undeterred. Then they shoot non-lethal pellets at him. Guy keeps coming, saying, "You can't stop us all." Finally, an officer holds a spray can up to Guy's face. He doesn't back down. The officer releases a stream of pepper spray. Guy wobbles. The crowd boos. Minutes later, Guy is washing his eyes out with bottled water. He doesn't make it inside, but the mob that was once behind him has pushed past the cops and is headed for the building.
Be advised, have people climbing up the outside of the northwest side stairs. We need shields on this side immediately.
4 miles north of the Capitol, Danelle and his DC intelligence team are tuned into the radio of the officers on the scene. They can't believe what they're hearing.
Intel 1, be advised, you got a group of about 50 charging up the hill on the west front, just north of the stairs.
Hearing real time on the actual radio, the sound in their voice. Officers coughing. Calling for help.
Need some reinforcements up here now. They're starting to pull the gates down. They're throwing metal poles at us. Lower stairs right now! Lower stairs right now! Every single unit that you got hit on the building!
This time, all units respond to the Upper West Terrace. They're reaching the Upper West Terrace at this time.
And I'm like, there's not enough people there.
Cruiser 50, we're going to give riot warning. We're going to try to get compliance, but this is now effectively a riot.
1349 hours, declaring it a riot.
While Danelle and his team listen in on the police radio, they're also watching social media feeds. There they see videos streaming live from rioters and reporters, showing that most Capitol Police officers aren't in riot gear. They're wearing soft jackets and baseball caps. 8-foot non-scalable fences were not erected. Instead, the Capitol is lined with 4-foot-high bike racks, the kind you'd see along a parade route.
And I'm looking at them like, wait, they're penetrating the building.
If I give this up, they're going to have direct access. At least this Capitol we can defend. We got to hold what we have.
And I'm like, this is going south. And it's going south really, really quick.
50, give me DSO up here now! DSO! Multiple law enforcement entries! DSO, get up there!
And I ran down the hall to my boss, and I'm like, they're penetrating the Capitol. They're getting in.
A TV is on in his boss's office. The networks are still covering the vote certification.
And the first thing I was told was like, no, they're not. They're just like scuffling. So I'm like, no, you need to come and see what I'm looking at. And my boss came down the hall and stood there for about a minute slack-jawed. and then ran back down the hall.
What is your job at this moment? Like, you're collecting information and you're seeing it deteriorating. Like, what do you think you should be doing?
At that point, my job is, I'm useless, to be quite honest with you.
The exact sequence of events at this point is a blur for Donnell.
I was told that I was in a conference room, the executive conference room, and my bosses, were convening a call, and it was federal officials from the Pentagon, the Capitol Police Chief, and other DC officials. And the thing that stood out for me is the Capitol Police Chief requesting assistance in the most impassioned way that you can imagine, saying, "I just heard shots fired in the Capitol, and we need help, whoever you can send." At that point, we didn't know who was shooting. We didn't know how many people were shot or if anyone was shot. And it was a very, very tense moment. One of those really surreal moments I'll never forget in my career. This wasn't supposed to happen. With all the information, I don't think this is intelligence failure. I'll go to my grave saying that. The vast amount of information, you got to protect your house better than that. What documents happened? What conversations happened? Why did they not wear the scarf like their mom told them to when it was cold outside? We still don't know what happened. It's alarming because the threat is still out there, right? And when the threat materializes the next time, and it will, it probably won't materialize in a very heavily guarded Capitol building. It will probably materialize in a way that we haven't seen before, and it's concerning.
As the day is winding down, after hours of watching news coverage, Jackson notices his phone light up with a call from an unfamiliar number.
They're like, "Jackson Reffitt, do you have time to talk?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
It's an agent from the FBI. The agent asks Jackson if he's in a safe place to talk. Jackson says, "Hang on a second," slips on his shoes, and gets into his car. Jackson has just spent hours watching the rioters battle police on TV. He now has a pretty good idea of the big thing his dad was planning.
I was like, "Your timing is impeccable." That's what I said on the phone call. and
Did they laugh?
No.
Jackson Reffitt, Donnell Harvin, Natalie Jangula. January 6th changed the arc of each of their lives forever.
There have been a lot of threats. 4chan, they want to kill me.
Jackson Reffitt told his story publicly about turning in his dad. Then he had to go into hiding.
They will hunt you down if they really want you. They're crazy.
You left government. Why?
I was burnt out.
Donnell Harvin called it quits. Having lost faith in his ability to make change from inside the government, he left and joined a think tank.
Do you feel like you reached the limit of your effectiveness
Absolutely.
in this area? You did.
Absolutely.
Natalie Jangula, on the other hand, got motivated.
I'm going to do this. This is an opportunity, and I'm going to jump on it.
Along with dozens of others who attended the Stop the Steal rally, she decided to run for office. And she won.
It's my time to step in and make changes and be a part of something bigger than me.
For 4 years, Ilya and I covered Trump for a podcast called Trump Inc. When Trump lost the election in 2020, we figured our time reporting on him was basically done. On January 6th, in fact, we were editing our last episode. Then we watched the Capitol get stormed by Trump supporters while the president stood by. And we realized there was still work to be done.
When we started reporting on Trump's role in 1/6, we found something larger. The stories of the people who took part in the day and the people who tried to stop it. Those who saw it coming for years and those who know January 6th was just the beginning of something, not the end.
this season on Will Be Wild.
We were like, you're going to get in trouble no matter what. Duh. And my dad was like, if that happens, then you know what happens to traitors. Traitors get shot.
No, we didn't dodge a bullet. That was a practice run.
This fight has just begun.
Because, like, honestly, I didn't go planning to murder anybody, but I knew that it was a possibility that there could be casualties.
Is that what your memo said? This could lead to violence?
I don't think it's this could. It said we should expect to see more violence.
In our next 2 episodes of Will Be Wild, we go inside the 2 agencies dedicated to preventing extremist attacks. Because long before Janelle Harvin and Jackson Reffitt's warnings, people at the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security were sounding the alarm about the rising threat of domestic terrorism.
This was a problem. In fact, this was a wildfire spreading across the country, and we needed to take action.
But they were ignored.
The answer we got back was no.
Why?
We have a good group. We got about 30, 40 of us. We're sticking together and sticking to the plan.
We'll see you soon, Jess. Airborne.
After that, brother, Godspeed and fair winds to us.
If you like our show, please give us a 5-star rating and review. You can listen to new episodes of Will Be Wild early on Amazon Music or early and ad-free by subscribing to Wondery Plus in the Wondery app or on Apple Podcasts. In the episode notes, you'll find some links and offers from our sponsors. Please support them. By supporting them, you help us offer the show for free. Another way you can support the show is by filling out a survey at Wondery.com/survey.
Will Be Wild is a production of Pineapple Street Studios, Wondery, and Amazon Music. It's hosted by me, Andrea Bernstein, and Ilya Maritz. Our senior producer is Kat Aaron. Our producer-reporters are Christine Driscoll and Alice Wilder. Our associate producer is Maria Alexa Kavanaugh. Our editors are Maddie Sprung-Kaiser and Joel Lovell. Production on this episode by Annie Brown, and on our trailer by Courtney Harrell. Fact-checking by Jane Drinkard. Our sound designer is Hannes Brown, who also composed the original music. Pineapple's head of engineering is Raj Makija.
Legal services for Pineapple Street by Bianca Grimshaw at Granderson Desrochers. Legal review also provided by Katie Ali Mohammadi Crown and Sarah Schwarzman at Donaldson Caliph Perez. Jenna Weiss-Berman and Max Linsky are the executive producers at Pineapple Street, with support on Will Be Wild from Maddie Sprung-Kaiser. From Amazon Music and Wondery, our managing producer is Candice Manriquez-Wren, senior producer is Eliza Mills, and executive producers are Morgan Jones, Marshall Louis, and Aaron O'Flaherty. Special thanks this episode to Joaquin Sapien and Josh Kaplan from ProPublica.